Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Movement Radio. I am Chip Hazard,
And I'm Talon Williams.
and today we are joined by the incomparable Ricky Reyes. Ricky, how are you today?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Man,
Absolutely, man.
thank
We
you.
definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Um, so for those who don't know, who is Ricky Reyes?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. This could go a few different ways. I guess it all depends on who you ask, right? For me, I always, I don't know, I guess I just, when I wanted to get into wrestling, I just wanted to be a part of it, right? Like I was a fan, and I made up my mind when I was like 5 years old that this was what I was going to do. Um, and I never, steered away from that. So it made it for a rougher childhood, but I just was wanted to be a good wrestler, and when I announced my retirement and stuff like that, uh, I think I accomplished that because I had a lot of people, a lot of important people, a lot of people I didn't even know, and then so many people reach out and just thank me, right? Like fans and people literally all around the world. So who Ricky Reyes is as a wrestler, and I just wanted to be a part of it. So I mean, you would have to ask other people about if they know of me or what they think of me. I know that I've had a little bit of a I always had a chip on my shoulder. I always looked at guys like Tully Blanchard, um, that were smaller guys, but worked super hard, and pushed guys. So I mean, as a wrestler, I was one of those like utility guys, like a Dean Malenko, I guess. I remember Chavo Guerrero Jr. told me that one time in Lucha Underground. He says, you're like the Dean Malenko of Lucha Underground. He said you could wrestle everybody, and everybody wants to wrestle you. He goes, it's like you're like the perfect mechanic, and I took that as a huge compliment. In my life altogether, right? Because wrestling was everything for me. So to be complimented like that, I think like I kind of accomplished what I set out to, at least. So for me, I was just wanted to be looked at as a positive for the industry and not ruin it in any way.
Right. So Chip asked the question, who is Ricky Reyes? I'm gonna ask the question, who was Ricky Reyes? And what I mean by that is, what was that initial spark that made you become a fan of professional wrestling?
Hulk Hogan beating the Iron Sheik in Madison Square Garden. I watched it with my dad and my brother Saturday morning. Um, and when Hulk Hogan pinned him, I remember me and my brother just kind of like being so excited, not really knowing what we were watching, but what we I just fell in love at that moment, right? And I remember that moment I turned to my dad and said, I want to be a wrestler when I grow up, and he's like, shut up and sit down. I can't see the TV. Um, so that was literally the conversation. But I remember sitting down thinking, I'm gonna be a wrestler. Like that was it. I just made up my mind. I was like 6 or something at the time, and I just always loved it.
Right.
I had a very similar moment like that. My grandmother sat me down in front of the TV, and she always liked the heels, and she'd sit there and she'd have her cane, and I remember it was when Roddy Piper smashed the coconut on Jimmy Snuka,
Mm.
and she waved her cane and she's like, "That's what you get, Snuka. That's what you get." And I was just so enamored. Like I turned to her and I said, "Grammy, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'm going to be a wrestler." And I got a very similar. She's like, "Shh, I can't hear what they're saying. Shh, sit down."
Hey, we all got that story. I remember watching it as a kid and I loved it as a kid, like, the Monday Night Wars and all this sort of stuff. But I remember 1996 with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in the Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12.
Anaheim.
I watched that. I sat down. Here's the weird thing about that story. That with that story is that I asked my mom, "Can we order WrestleMania?" And she said, "Well, you got to go to church with me that night." And I'm like, "All right, that's cool. I'll just sit through the church. No problem." He was like, and she said, "No, no, no, no. I'm going to test you. I'm going to make sure you're listening. If you can answer three questions that was in the message, then I'll order the pay-per-view for you." Little did I know she already ordered it, right? And I sat down glued to this television watching Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart, right? After that match, I looked at my mom and I said, "Mom, one day I want to do that." Now, notice I said the word want to do that. Now, fast forward a year and a half later, and maybe I'm biased, I watch what I believe is the best match that I've ever seen in my entire life, which was 1997 Halloween Havoc, Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, Mass
Yeah.
versus Cruiserweight Championship.
Yeah.
I watched that match and I looked back at my mom and I said, "Mom, I'm going to do that." So
Yeah.
it went from I want
Right.
to I'm going to. And she goes, "Okay, Talon." I'm
Eh,
like, "Thanks,
eh,
thanks for the encouragement, Mom."
that's it. Yeah. Sure you are,
Yeah,
kid.
but yeah, absolutely. So okay, so with that, obviously Hogan and the Iron Sheik and all that. When did it start to get more serious for you to want to want to pursue professional wrestling?
I mean, it was always serious. That's what I mean. Like when
Yeah,
I remember knowing that that's what I was going to do, like in my heart. And that's what I mean by making it like a tough childhood was, you know, as we all know, you get to junior high, you go through elementary school. So I was the weird wrestling kid, right? It's funny because, yeah, like you have the magazines, like you're hiding them in your books,
yep,
and everyone's kind of making fun of you until they want to see the magazines too. You know what I mean?
yep,
And
yep,
then all of a sudden it's like a dirty secret. Like we all like, you build this underground community of, you know, five or six friends that all have I'll bring my magazines tomorrow. Let's trade, and then it
yep.
turns into that. But I was always that. And then I guess going into junior high, I played basketball because, my parents didn't have a lot of money. So going to the park I lived in Southern California. So going to the park was easy, right? Like my dad's like, oh, go outside and play, and we didn't, what am I going to run around in the dirt? So he's like, go to the park and, play basketball or something. So I would play basketball a lot with my friends, and we all kind of like, oh, I'm gonna be playing NBA. Look, I'm Magic Johnson. I'm Larry Bird, whatever. And always thought in my head, like, man, I can't wait till I'm a wrestler. Like even at that young age. And I would say I took like my first major step towards doing this was the start of my sophomore year in high school. Um, I had all these like business classes, like for my electives or whatever you call them, and I was really good at this business and marketing and stuff like that. So I was in all these advanced marketing business classes and stuff. And I remember one day I woke up and I was on my way to school, and I thought, man, I need to like work out like in weights, and I need to get on the wrestling team because in a few years I'm going to be out of high school. Like I got to get ready for wrestling, for pro wrestling. So I
Right.
remember I went to the office and asked to talk to my counselor to change some classes. So I got like a second period weightlifting class, which was basically just working out in the gym with a bunch of football players. And then I quit the basketball team, and then my coach was like, "Well, what's this all about?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go out for the wrestling team." And he was like, "What? Like that's stupid." And then I walked over to the wrestling shed in the back and saw Coach Ross back there, and I was like, "Hey, what do I got to do to get on the team?" And he goes, "The same basketball kid." And I said, "Yeah, I know. Like, I want to be a wrestler when I grow up, so I want to learn wrestling." Because from the tapes and stuff I had seen and pictures I had seen, I realized like there were guys like the Steiner brothers and Bob Backlund, and these guys were doing like real wrestling throws and moves, and you know, and So anyways, my sophomore year, I changed my whole schedule around, which go well, didn't get over well with my parents because then they came to the office and, my mom's yelling at me in front of everybody, like, and, I just, that was a big turning point for me because they hated it. They hated the fact that I wanted to do this. They thought I was stupid and they would remind me of that every day. And I didn't care, man. Like that was it. Like once I got on the mat, and I wasn't good. I was tough. And there's a difference.
Yep.
I get my ass kicked every day, but I showed back up the next day like nothing happened. And
Hmm.
finally the guys just started respecting me as being basically like a bump dummy for them. And like I'm in there with like animals, right? These guys been wrestling since they were like 5, 6 years old, state champions and stuff like that. Southern California, or California as a whole, the CFI or CIF, whatever league, there's some animals in there. So
Yeah.
I wasn't anything great by any means, and I never claimed to be, but I learned wrestling. I learned the importance of it, and we had 8 hour long practices during season. So um, I built up my, I guess, threshold for pain and toughness. Right, like mentally, I wasn't going to stop. So there was no question. It was a matter of my body catching up with my mind, and that really molded me uh, through high school. I changed my body completely. I started getting, stronger and more athletic and stuff like that, which was key just to make it through these practices. And then off season, I was lifting with the guys, and around that time, the UFC was starting. So we were like tape trading and going to like Mr. Video to go watch, UFC 3, to go rent it. And, all this kind of was all kind of happening at once for me. So that was when I really took a serious step forward towards pro wrestling. And in doing so, I'm telling everybody in wrestling practice, like, well, what college are you going to go to, this and that? And I'm like, I'm not going to college. Like, I'm going to go be a pro wrestler, and they're like, oh, you're stupid. You're an idiot. And then we're all drop kicking each other and clotheslining each other, and, like, again, it went back to, that's stupid. It's fake to they watch it every week. Right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that was my sophomore year of high school. I remember was a huge turning point for me because I was so zoned in on it. Like I just woke up and I said, I need to do it now, like start it now. And I was
Right.
so grateful that I did, regardless of support, which I had zero of. I had the opposite of support. Uh, I was going to do it and I did it.
So
Right.
after high school, where did you go to make that dream come true?
So I always looked in the wrestling magazines like Wrestling Ringside and The Wrestler and PWI, for wrestling schools. So I started, you know, again, I didn't have a lot of money or money at all, So like I was working at this trucking terminal, for Warner Enterprises, it's called, and I got promoted to the parts department, and that was a 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. shift. So I really started looking for a wrestling school like desperately, and I found this wrestling magazine one time. I think it was Wrestling Ringside, and it had a yellow banner on the top, and it said "Guide to Independent Pro Wrestling." And I was like, "Holy shit!" And so I started flipping through it, and it had School of Hard Knocks, San Bernardino, California. It was Jesse Hernandez and Bill Anderson's wrestling school, and it was on E Street in San Bernardino, which was a 15-minute drive for me, right? So this was like, oh my God. Well, prior to that, I remember calling Ultimate Warriors school in Arizona and got some lady trying to get me to just send them like $500 for a down payment. Uh, and then Roland Alexander had APW up in Hayward, California, and I had called him, and he wanted the same down payment. And he said I could live there in a dorm, which was basically like a corner of a house or room or whatever. So I thought about all these things, and then finally I went to San Bernardino, and Jesse Hernandez came up to me, and I was checking it out, and he said, "Hey, brother, like you're kind of small, this and that." He goes, "We don't do contracts here or nothing." He goes, "You don't pay, you don't play." And he's like, "It's $25 a practice." He goes, and then we'll go from there. And I was like, "All right, what do I need?" And they were like, "Wrestling shoes." I was like, "I have them." I said, "I wrestled in high school." And they're like, "Okay, well, you can watch this practice, and then tomorrow, we start at this time." And that was it. And that's how I started.
Okay.
What did you think when you first got in the ring and you realized that it wasn't feathers?
Uh, yeah, well, I did a lot of like cardio stuff on the floor. They didn't really let me in right away. And then a couple of like, so my first practice I remember was on a Saturday morning. It was the 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. training. And when I got there, or I got there around 8, and I sat in the parking lot, scared, wanting to throw up, uh, because when I had gone in before, there was just all these big guys, right? I mean, uh, this was 1998. So everyone's kind of a giant, right? Even the small
Right.
guys are huge.
Right.
So and I had wrestled 120s in my senior year of high school. So this is like a couple years removed. So at best, I'm like maybe pushing 132, Um,
Right.
and so I'm small. And I got in and I kind of like did you do the bounce thing, like you kind of like try to bounce without looking like you're testing it. And then
Yep.
I remember holding the rope and thinking like this is fucking hard. Like, yeah, for some reason I thought it was like a rubber band that was gonna sling me off. And they had the old cables with the water hose, but it was all duct taped, so it was
I
real
always
thick.
hated those.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that shit hurt, right? Like
Hmm.
you're not used to it, So, I mean, I just kind of, walked around, and they're like, I remember this guy, this old guy, Crazy Casey. He had no front teeth, and big biker guy from the Hesperia area, and like a legit, like Hell's Angels style biker. And he said, "Hey kid, you ever taken a clothesline?" And it's my first day,
Oh my
and I was like,
God.
"Yeah." And I said, "No." So they kind of show me how to bump like real quick. And they're like, "All right, this is how you fall, tuck your chin." And I remember he just kind of like manhandled me, obviously, right? Because I'm not knowing anything. And he slings me into the ropes, and I'm pretty sure I ran, with left arm over instead of right.
Yep.
He comes stumbling back, and he just pop like right in the mouth, and I go down, and he's like, "That wasn't bad," and I was like, "Oh, thanks," and you just it's funny now, right? But and they just kind of just tossed me around the first day, but because I was, like I said, I was tough, so like I would get up after everything and get up after everything. And similar way, like I kind of started just earning people's respect because, man, Tuesday night I was there, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 to 11, and then 9 a.m. to 1 Saturday. I didn't miss a practice. So I was paying them, $100 a week, for training. And Jesse kept telling me, brother, out of sight, out of mind, if you're not here, you don't learn something, So I was like, well, I'm definitely not missing.
Right.
So that was kind of like the start of, you know, pro wrestling training for me, at least.
Right.
Right. Right. I mean, how did it feel when you finally you go in and they tell you you're okay, you're gonna have your first match. You're ready. How did that feel to you?
Man, like that's the thing is, you start doing the practice matches, or at least we did. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know. Every school does them. Most schools
Hmm.
do. Uh, so I started getting involved in those, and then, I used to come home, late at night and tell my parents and thinking they were going to be like, "That's great," and they were just like, "Well, that's, you're still stupid for doing this. And this is a waste of your fucking time." And, you're gonna be a loser your whole life. And I didn't care because I was on cloud nine, right? Like I did a drop kick tonight, and then I took Christopher Daniels, fall angel wings for the finish, in the match, right? So I thought, man, I made it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah, you're just so excited that like I said, I just didn't want to be a black guy to wrestling. Like, I just wanted to be a credit to it, and anything I could do. So I would take everything from guys, and I was just so excited, man. Like just to, just for the guys to accept me was huge because it wasn't accepted in my house, right? Like, but by anybody in my family. Like I don't talk to family members now because of falling outs that we had in the late 90s, early 2000s. I haven't seen cousins and uncles and aunt like, and they're irrelevant to me. Obviously they have been, but the thing is only the guys telling me that I was doing good was the feel that I needed,
Right.
Right.
so
Yeah.
I just kept going, man. And then I just wanted to get to a point where I see other guys like Chris Daniels in the ring, and I'm like, man, I want to be that good. Like, I want to be that guy that walked in the building and everyone's butthole tightened up a little bit, because they all knew, like, oh shit, like if I don't have my shit on point tonight, this dude can eat me up. Like that's what I always wanted to be. Same thing when I was in amateur wrestling. Like my buddy Brian Lynn, like he was like the man, he was kind of like Roman Reigns of the high school wrestling, right? Like showed up when he wanted, outworked everybody, and then just dipped, with a couple of chicks, and you're like, damn, Brian's so cool, uh,
Right.
so there's always that guy, and I always look to that, like, having that work ethic, like putting the work in. So I mean, it was clicking, right? Because I was at least able to follow. So I remember it was early September. Bill Anderson came up to me and said, "Hey, we have this show coming up. You need to come up with a gimmick." And I was like, "What? A gimmick? Like, okay." And then Jesse comes over and he's like, "Yeah, brother. Did you do anything when you were a kid? Like, did you play baseball or karate or something?" And I was like, "No, I wrestled." Brother, it's fucking boring. Nobody wants to see a wrestler out there wrestling. And I was like, well, I wrestled because I wanted to be a wrestler, And he's like, no, we need a gimmick. And then Bill was like, you have this kind of stature to you. He goes, what if you were like a colonel or something, like a military or something, because you have this, like, I don't know. I was always asked, were you in the military? And I was like, no. I guess because I stand real straight, or I have this something to me. I don't know. But I said, okay, so what should I do? So he gives me a VHS tape of an old war movie, and he said, look for the character by the name of whatever, Colonel, whatever the fuck. He goes, and wear something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. So I never watched it. I gave it back to him, and I was like, yeah, I got it, and I just kind of kept wrestling. He didn't tell me when my date was or whatever that I had to be ready. But a buddy of mine from the gym was like, we were at this place called Max Muscle, and it's like a nutrition shop next to the gym. And he goes, well, what about something like this? And he kind of like pulls out like a singlet, like a weightlifter singlet, like an old school, And he goes, like you'd wear in amateur wrestling. And I said, yeah. I said, I guess that works. I have amateur shoes and knee pads or whatever. So I bought it and I just left it in my wrestling bag, And so we're at this outdoor show, and I was just there to set up the ring. And I remember Chris Daniels walking in, and he was doing the show. And Jesse came up to me and was like, well, brother, where's the gimmick? Let's see the gimmick. And I said, well, I don't have one. At the time, there was Billy Kidman was doing the uh flock thing or whatever
Oh
they
yeah,
had.
yeah.
So he had like jean shorts, right? And I remember telling Jesse, I said, maybe I could just do something like that. Like I have like regular clothes and I come out and I'm just kind of like a grunge, fighter or whatever. And I remember Chris Daniels from the other side of the fucking room dropped it, put his bags down, stormed over like he was going to punch me in the mouth. and he put his finger in my face like a child. And he said, "You will have professional gear because you are a professional wrestler. Do you understand? You will have a gear maker make you gear and you will wear appropriate attire." And I was like, in front of the entire locker room, right?
Holy
The new
shit.
the new dipshit that they can't get the turnbuckles lined up correctly, right? Is getting yelled at by Chris, you know? And I remember telling him, "Yes, sir, I'm sorry." And he just turned around and like stormed back, you know, and I was like, and then Jesse's like, "All right, brother, we'll figure it out. We have TV tapings in Lancaster in a couple weeks." So of course, I didn't find a gear maker because you don't know anybody, you know. So I
Right.
go up to
Yeah.
Lancaster. I set the ring up. All of us, underclassmen, I guess you call them, we're all dicking off outside. And Bill came out and he said, "Hey, Reyes, you got gear?" And I was like, "I have a singlet in my bag." And he goes, "All right, you're wearing that. You're on the first match tonight." And that was it. I was like, "Oh shit, this is happening." So I was like, my friends are all like, "Oh my God, you're gonna do it." And so it was a small like tin building, and then they just shot local TV, kind of like infomercial style wrestling, right? And that was it. I just had my first match like out of nowhere.
Do you remember who you had your first match with and what was it like?
The phenomenal Phil. Uh, he was this real douchebag, like in real life, arrogant dickhead. He had like had a Jerry curl like perm, but it was in shape of a mullet. So it was greasy and mullet shaped, but it was a perm. And yeah,
Oh, kind of like
exactly.
Kenny Powers. Do you ever see
Exactly like
Eastbound
Kenny
and Down?
Powers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Fucking
that
yes.
is almost looked like him too. Yeah, like, and he was all
And, th-
juiced up. He was all
and this
juiced
is
up.
Southern California?
Yeah, yeah. Look it up. Phenomenal
Yeah.
Phil, 1998.
I'm gonna have to look
Um,
it up soon.
and and um, and he was all juiced up, because he did some WWF extra stuff. So of course he got on the gas, and of course,
Hmm.
none of us know how to do the gas right. So we're eating Taco Bell and on the gas simultaneously, lifting heavy and then blowing up in the ring like assholes while wearing baby oil. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, so everything he had called in the match, we did, and it came off without a hitch. Uh, he did like a superplex and he did a bunch of big stuff. He did some flipping thing where he crushed my sternum, he had to get his shit in. Um, I mean, we went for a little while. From what I recall, it was, like a lengthier match that was on the card. Um, and all the old guys that were, fucking with me were like,
Mm.
"That wasn't bad," like, and I took that as a compliment, right? Like,
Right.
Right.
they're all just like, "First match, that wasn't bad," and that was kind of it as far as the first match goes.
Awesome.
Right.
So from there, like where do you go next? Do you still do those TV tapings? How long did you do that before you tried to venture out to more places?
Yeah, so the venturing out part was huge. Uh, so eventually, me and Rocky ended up teaming together to form our tag team, the Havana Pitbulls. Um, and that was a comical situation. I remember because Rocky was doing a monkey gimmick, uh, because he was a couple years younger than me and
Hmm.
was even smaller, surprisingly. So they put him in a hood, and he was feuding with another kid, Sun Warrior, that was also in a hood, and because they advertised lucha libre, so a couple of the guys had to have random masks, right? So
Right.
he was doing Mono Negro, which is the black monkey, and he eventually lost his mask, and then he was doing nothing. So I was just kind of doing these shows from the school, the promotion from the school, and I'm just getting beat every night, first or second match. Well, the other first or second match was them, for the mask. So he went around every little town we worked and lost his mask. And then Jesse was like, "Hey, you got to come up with a gimmick, like an actual real gimmick. This boring Ricky Reyes thing isn't working out," and And then I remember Rocky was there and he was like, well, what about me? He goes, I still don't have a gimmick. And then Bill was like, we could just make you guys a tag team because the Wrecking Crew needs opponents. And they were like big baby faces. So there were these two big black guys, super jacked, and they wore like overalls that airbrushed. This is the
Okay.
90s, so
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
cool, right?
Like Rob
So
Van
they
Dam style airbrushing kind of
yeah,
singlets and
airbrushed
stuff.
on the white jean overalls with like airbrushed Wrecking Crew. They look cool. They look really cool. I mean, even it
Gotcha.
would work. It would work today, you know.
Okay.
And they were the nicest guys, but they were huge, right? So, but they were baby faces because they just kind of threw everybody around and pandered to the crowd, So
Right.
that was their working style. So, anyways, Jesse comes up with the night. He goes, "Why don't you guys be a tag team?" So me and Rocky look at each other and we're like, "All right, whatever." Like, I don't really like. I liked working out with Rocky, but I didn't. Your plan is never to be in a tag team, right? At first, so
Right.
I was like, I said, "Well, we're both Puerto Rican." I said, "Can we be like the Puerto Rican tag team?" And Rocky's like, "Yeah, let's do that." And then Jesse, who's friends with Savio, is like, "Ah, brother, fucking Savio and Los Boricuas are on TV. I'll get heat, brother. WWF, they use me, blah, blah, blah." And I'm thinking, I don't know if WWF knows about us. So I was like, okay. And then he goes, "What about Cuban? Nobody likes Cubans and nobody likes you guys." And we were like, all right, that's fair. Like, nobody really likes us. We're kind of like, we were both not arrogant, but we could come off arrogant
Mm.
because we worked so hard and we were getting better. So, like that was the thing, was when me and Rocky would run spots together, nobody could follow how we would do it, how fast and crisp. Uh, so we were kind of like a perfect match to be a team because we worked the match as a team, as a unit, like Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard style, or
Yep.
Ole and Arn type of style wrestlers. Um, so I ended up teaming with Rocky, and then we got over really big, and then UPW started, which was where John Cena was discovered, and
Yeah. Ultimate Pro Wrestling.
yeah, Aaron Aguilera and all those guys. So well, Chris was a champion there. So Chris was like, "Hey, you guys got to go to this guy, Rick Bassman. He's in Huntington Beach." And I said, "All right, well, for what?" He said, "He has these big shows and WWF guys are on it." He goes, "You guys need to be on it." And we were like, "Okay." So we went down, did a couple practices on Saturdays, and did what they called like a light show, which was like a student show. And a couple of the fans were like message board nerd fans, and they kind of fanboyed out when they saw me and Rocky there. That they traveled around, and did their message board reports or whatever the fuck it was, and they kind of marked out. So the reaction we got a couple weekends in a row, Rick Bassman was like, "Oh, geez, I love you guys. You guys are just small, like that's the only thing. You're small. WWF don't want small guys." And we're like, okay, like, but I'm gonna put you on my shows. And then we started training there. Um, that's where like, Samoa Joe was and everybody. Chris was there training. So we started kind of like stepping in there more training, and that's when we kind of ventured out. And then after that, we just kind of like broke away from EWF or Jesse Hernandez's school altogether and started just traveling all over, kind of booking ourselves. Because at first we didn't know how to really do it, and then we caught on, and then we just kind of caught fire from there because we were having really good matches with like the Ballard brothers. They're these twins that dress like in a hockey jerseys. Um,
Oh,
they
I think I've seen them before.
Yeah, they wear the glasses with the tape, like that movie.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about now. Okay, because I was drawing a blank for a minute. I'm like, oh, oh yeah, no, no. Okay.
yeah, Shannon and Shane, and we were killing it with them. And then we were booked. We were married to those guys for a couple years. I mean, we were Russ PWG everywhere with them. Like we just took it around the horn, um, and we just started really getting popular. And that was kind of like our little start to getting out there.
Yeah.
So when go ahead, Chip.
Well,
Sorry.
I was going to say, funny story. When I first started training, my first like foray into UPW, I found at a local like video store here where we live,
The
they
training video.
the Ultimate Pro Wrestling Training.
Yeah.
I still have that DVD in my collection.
Yeah, Joe and Cena's on that. I think Chris is
Uh-huh.
on it.
Chris
We
is
weren't
on it.
invited. We weren't invited to it because we were too small.
Mm.
I think Joe, Chris, Cena, Frankie Kazarian's on it.
Yeah. Ryan
Uh,
Aguilera's on it
Sakota.
too, I think. Yeah.
yeah.
Ryan Sakota.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alcatraz. Yeah, all
Yeah.
the big guys were there. All the big jacked up guys that Rick thought WWE would be interested in.
Yes.
We asked if we could come and bump for guys. We didn't even want to be a featured part. We were like, hey, we bump well. And I think a lot of guys were like they're gonna steal our heat. Like, uh so yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after you make the rounds and make the loops, when did you and Rocky migrate towards the East Coast to be a part of Ring of Honor?
Uh well, we did huge things even before we went to Ring of Honor.
Yeah. Tell us all
We
about that.
Yes.
yeah, so we we went from UPW, and then at UPW, this guy Justin McCauley, who was Aaron Aguilera's tag partner, um, Justin McCauley was Mr. Inoki's jujitsu coach for his fighters.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Oh
yeah, so
wow.
Mr. Inoki had a place in Santa Monica, and then that's when he opened the Inoki Dojo, New Japan Dojo, the first one in 2001. So we had matches with Justin and Hardcore Kid. And Justin, if he didn't like you, he would just eat you alive because he was a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, like a legitimate. He was Tito Ortiz's jiu-jitsu coach for a while, Ken Shamrock's, Don Fry's. Um, it don't get no more legit than Justin. Like he was in Pancrase with Boss Rutan and all these guys back in the
Oh
day.
wow.
Yeah, his brother Sean McCulley owns LA Boxing Club, the whole franchise. Like that's his deal.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, he had a house in Thailand. He would go to Thailand, get all the Thai equipment, and then upcharge it to all his fighters in the U.S. and make a killing on it because he would just go there, train, buy a bunch of shit for cheap, and then flip it here to all the fighters. And he was a multi-time world champion in Muay Thai.
Oh,
So
Wow.
wow.
Justin liked me and Rocky because we weren't afraid of him. Well, we were, but we wouldn't show it. Uh, well, because I told Rocky, I said, I remember the first time we worked. I think they were called Hardcore Inc. Um, and I told him, I said, well, Justin gets Froggy out there. You got my back, and he was like, yeah, for sure, for sure. So Justin would just test you and like twist you up and see how you react. So, and long story short, Justin respected me and Rocky's efforts. Like he just liked us. Well, anyways, we were at a UPW Galaxy show, Theater Galaxy, and Justin came and he was like in a suit and he came to the back and he was like, hey guys, I got to talk to you. And we were like, he wasn't even on the show. So he said that he had just come from a meeting with Mr. Inoki and he's opening the dojo and it's invite only. And he goes, and I'm inviting you two to come to the New Japan dojo that's opening up. And that was wrestling in Japan was it for me. If I could do it and then die the next day, we're good. So I was like, hell yeah. I was like, oh man, let us know, let us know. So he did. Um, they opened it up. We were there when the container from Japan got shipped to LA, and they sent over a ring crew to put it up correctly. Well, the ring crew showed us how New Japan puts the rings up. So we were there to help, and then of course we got in and started bumping around. And this was 2001, so we were, we were doing that. Anyways, we did 3 different tryouts for 3 different people. So Liger was the first one we did a tryout for. Chono was the second one we did the tryout for. And then in the summer, Mr. Uai, who was the head booker of New Japan at the time, he came down and he shook our hands and said, me, Rocky, Brian Danielson, and TJP, were the last match, tryout match. He shook all four
Whew.
of our hands and said, "Welcome to New Japan." And then he told Simon Inoki, he said, "I'll send contracts later." And then he just turned around and walked out of the building. And we were like, "Did we just think happened what happened?" So it was like 2 weeks later, and Simon called me, and he was like, "Hey, come to the office early before we practiced." And I said, "All right." So I drove down to Santa Monica, and Rocky was already sitting there. Brian was with us, and he put three papers in front of us and slid us pens and said, "This is your contract for your first tour for New Japan." So it was a 2 week deal, $5,000, and we were like, "All right." So we signed it, and then a week later went, and then they told us to re-sign another one, and we were going for 4 weeks. We were going to do Mr. Fujinami's group. It was called Muga, and it was like almost like a catch wrestling style shows. So it wasn't like a lot of pro wrestling. It was more on the ground. And then in the middle of the tour, we were going to work the Tokyo Dome, which was the Spiral, October 14th, 2002. And we're like reading through the paper where the schedule. And then I was like, and then the Tokyo Dome? And then Simon's like smiling, and he says, "Yes, congratulations." And I was like, wait, we're wrestling on it? So I'm thinking we're going to be one of the dark matches. Like no one wants to see us. Um, and he was like, "Yeah." So we sign it. I go in the locker room. I cry. Uh, I come out. I can't, like, I don't even understand what's going on in my life. Right. So I remember Rocky was like, "I think we're really going to be doing this." And I was like, I don't know what to say. So we start training, right? Whatever. So Mr. Inoki comes in the next week, I think it was, and he would come in and just roll around with us, and we would just listen to him talk. Like he would just tell us about a move or wrestling, whatever. We just wanted him to talk. So he come in, and then Simon says something to him in Japanese, and he kind of nods his head and gives us the big chin smile, and he walks over and kind of shakes all four of our hands, and he's like, "Congratulations, congratulations." And then Simon says, "Mr. Inoki is very proud of you and looks forward to seeing your match in the Tokyo Dome." So we were like, "Holy shit." So anyways, we go to Japan. We do really well. We wrestle the Dome. We wrestle Kakihara, who is a UWF fighter, Tiger Mask 4, and Jushin Liger on the first match of the main show. Um,
Wow.
yeah. So
Now, at this point, how long have you been in the business?
uh, the end of '98. This is 2002. So less than 4 years.
Wow.
Wow.
What was that like when you walked into the Tokyo Dome and you saw this? Not even for your match, you're just walking in and just seeing the Tokyo Dome. Like, what was going through your mind at that moment?
The funny thing is in 2001, I did a USO tour of Asia, where we were on military bases doing pro wrestling, but it was a bunch of old WWF guys. And then it
Right.
was a handful of Southern California guys because we were cheap. Um, and I remember we had a day off in Tokyo. And I remember I went to stand in front of the dome and took a picture. And I was with my friend Farouk and Eric. And I told them, one day I'm going to wrestle in this fucking building. And of course they were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, me too." You know, and the next year I was wrestling in it. Um,
Yeah.
so
That's
I
dope,
rem
man.
I remember like going from the hotel. So we were in Tokyo Dome City, which is the big hotels right next to the dome. So we would walk over there the couple weeks leading up to it because that's where we were
Mhm.
operating out of. And then when it was showtime, they have you go downstairs from the lobby. They go to this secret hallway that goes underneath the dome, and then you get brought up this elevator, and there's armed security guards underneath it. So it's like the pass to get underneath it. And I mean, I could still smell the smell of the dome. Like it's very unique, and I just couldn't believe it like the whole time. So were the first match on the main show. So they had a couple matches in a battle royal, and then we get in a van. So we're in our locker rooms, and then we get in a black. We go outside the building. We go in this black van that says New Japan in gold on the side. I'll never forget it. And it was me, Brian, and Rocky, and Simon Inoki came downstairs right as we're coming out of the elevator, and he goes, "Oh, I just want to say good luck." And we were like, "Oh, thanks, Simon." Like, so we're nervous. We have the match. It's pretty basic and easy. And Liger's like, "Hey, easy, easy, no problem. We got this." So Simon goes, "Oh, good luck, whatever." He goes, "And just to let you guys know, official sellout, 65,000, no seats available." And then we all kind of
Wow.
like pause for that minute, and we're like, thanks, Simon. And then we get in the van, and they drive us around to the other side of the dome. We get out, we go downstairs into this conference room, and Liger and Tiger Mask and Kakihara are standing there warming up, and I want to shit my pants, right? Like,
Right.
Tiger Mask just gives the old little thumb up, and then Liger walks over. Everything good? Everything good? And then we're like, "Oh yeah, of course. Anything. Okay, one more time, one more time." So we go over the beginning of the match. We tell Liger this. We say, "Okay, opening match. I think it was me, maybe Rocky. I can't. One of us says, okay, we'll start off with the Pearl Harbor." So 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 Brian's eyes get, because if you have to understand, Brian to this day is the biggest nerd I've ever met in my life, right? His eyes go like, and we're like, yeah. He goes, okay, okay, and then we go through the whole match, and he walks away, and Brian goes, "Are you stupid?" And we're like, what? And he goes, "We're gonna start off with the Pearl Harbor." And I was like, I don't, my bad. Like, so that was one of many silliness. So anyways, whatever. We do the match. It's amazing. Whatever. Everyone loved it. We finished the tour with Scott Norton. That was the same tour that Jim Steele, Mike Barton jumped from All Japan to join New Japan. So that was like a really big. That got coverage. Boss Rutan came in for a couple of shows and a pay-per-view. China was on the same show. That's the one she got her ass kicked by Chono in. Um, so yeah, it was amazing. And then from there so we came home, and one of the old guys, the trainers, his brothers run CMLL. So he was like, "Hey, would you guys want to go during the tour?" He goes, "Would you guys want to go to Mexico?" And we were like, "Yeah, of course." So at the end of 2023, or midway through 2020 or 2003, that's when they sent us to Mexico City for CMLL. And then we started training with Negro Casas, Vampiro, Ultimo Guerrero. And then we were working with Volador Jr. and Ricky Marvin, all these guys, Virus. And then we were there. And then when we got back from Mexico City, they wanted us to go right back like 2 weeks later. And we were like, because Chris Daniels had told Gabe about us, Gabe Sapolsky, who was the booker for Ring of Honor. And he was like, "Look, these guys are legit, whatever." And then Gabe was like, "Well, we can't afford another, flight from California. We already got Joe and Chris." Well, that was around the time when TNA pulled all their contracted talent from Ring of Honor shows,
I
when
remember that.
the
Yep.
Feinstein thing went down. We were part of that reborn stage. That they did a first double shot weekend. That was our debut, and our first match in with the Briscoes was against the
Mm.
Briscoes. Um, and that was I think Minnesota or something. And then the next day was Chicago. Uh, but yeah, that was when we debuted on the East Coast.
Yeah. What was it
Yeah,
like being in the ring with the Briscoes in a tag team capacity?
Man, here's the thing about the Briscoes, right? So we're all in the same, we never met each other, right? Obviously. We had heard about them and seen them on RF videos, right? So
Yeah.
I remember they they were in the van with us, like going to the hotel, and it was like awkwardly quiet because the talk was they're the best in the East and we were the best in the West, right? So there was like this already built up tension of who's really the best, right? So you kind
Right.
of read through the message boards. We all say we don't, but we do, to see what people are saying, right? This is how you gauge if you're doing your job right.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so there was this like we were not cordial to each other, right? But we almost got like fighters before weigh-in. Like you're just kind of like sizing them up, not trying to size them up, you know? And so we get to the hotel, whatever. I go to the gym, and then Rocky's like, "Oh, we're gonna go to Mall of America," and I'm like, "All right, like I don't care." And he's like, "Don't you want to go?" Me and Rocky used to fight like a married couple. Like I wanted to go to the gym and work out, and he likes to go sightseeing and smelling flowers and shit and puddles and rivers or whatever, you know. And I said, "Nah, bitch, I'm gonna go. I gotta hit some shoulders." And he's like, "Whatever, bro. I guess I'll go with the Briscoes then." I said, "Then fucking go with the Briscoes, bro. I don't give a shit. Like, go, you know." So they go to the mall, and then later that night we have the match. Well, they become buddies with Rocky because Rocky's the most pleasant person you'll ever meet in your life, right? So so it kind of like the whatever was there during the van ride was gone, right? Because then they kind of they all collectively made fun of me because I had to go work out, you know. Um, so everything was cool. We talked about the match, and I remember specifically kind of laying out the match myself because I was like, I said, all right, how about this? Everyone's been wanting to see us work, right? And they're like, yeah, okay. I said, what if we did something like this? We do some aggressive wrestling in the beginning. I'll never forget this. We do some aggressive wrestling in the beginning. I said, and then when one of us is sick of seeing each other, these two go at it, let's go in there like we're gonna fucking like you need to calm the fuck down type of situation. And Jay was like, hell yeah, son, let's do it. And I was like, and then we get in each other's face, make the ref push us apart, restart the match, and we'll go into something sick, high spot, boom, bam, 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 just shots fired, boom, boom. I said something, fucking, Rocky will go to the floor, I'll go to console him. I said, Mark, hit something, a dive, fucking right. I said, and then we're just fucking going to work. I said, then it's a fight. And then we just built to the comeback. We'll cut you guys off, beat the shit out of you, come back, and then whatever you guys want. They were like doomsday for the finish. I said, perfect. Rocky, you'll take that. And,
Gee, that sounds familiar. Chip.
that's that's how you know your partner loves you.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so we did the deal. Well, anyways, we get into the wrestling and we smartened the ref up. We said, look, when it looks like it's getting too much, try to break us all up. And he was like, all right, cool. And it was this ref Hansen, this nerd ref. And so he got real scared. So I think it was Rocky and maybe Mark. I can't remember. Or maybe me and Mark. I remember one of us, we were just all going at it. And then we all faced off. Like we were pushing and shoving like in the middle of the match. And the whole fucking place started pounding the fucking the guardrails, like real hard. And they were like, ROH. And the whole fucking place was on its feet. We didn't do anything. We just got in each other's face basically from after wrestling. I think it was Rocky because Rocky goes, get him the fuck off me. And then like stood up. And then I charged in and that was it. Like the whole place erupted. And I remember we walked through the curtain and fucking Gabe was standing there applauding. He's like, I love the Havana Pitbulls. And that was kind of it. Like we started in Ring of Honor. I think that was maybe in the summer. And then we won the belts by August.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. That was the first time that I remember seeing you and Rocky.
Yeah.
Was that match against the Briscoes?
It's
Uh,
funny because so many people say that, but we were like international stars 2 years prior to this. You know what I mean?
right.
But in
Uh,
America, like most people remember our beginning of the 2004 Ring of Honor run as our first, and we're like, we wrestled in Arena, Mexico every Friday night for 6 months before, in the Tokyo Dome, before we even got here, you know?
uh,
Yeah.
so I was in like a tape trading group,
Mm,
and I was always trying to get stuff from like Mexico and Japan.
yeah.
Nobody could get it for me, and
Mm,
I was so upset because I wanted to see what wrestling was like, you know,
yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
But everybody could get me Ring of Honor stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, the Ring of Honor stuff. Yeah, like even when I was younger, like I never watched a lot of CMLL. Most of what I got from Mexico was AAA.
Yep.
Which was which not to throw shade at CMLL, but AAA is kind of like the WWE of Mexico, basically.
Yeah. More
And
gimmicky.
so
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that's what you get. But yeah, so you have this run in Ring of Honor. At what point did it? How can I ask this question? Let me. Sorry, I'm fumbling my words here. Um, how long did you and Ricky last in Ring of Honor before you went to somewhere else?
Well, the thing that happened, I guess everybody was just doing business and not involving me, is what
Gotcha.
it come down to. Homicide was a cornerstone there, so he was kind of set and doing his own thing.
Yeah.
Low key was being low key and quit in the middle of our build to Final Battle, after I don't know, I guess he didn't want to lose one weekend, and him and Gabe never really liked each other, so they had a falling out. And then I get a phone call from D that low key quit, and now we're fucked.
Mm.
Well, around that time, Rocky had worked out a deal with CMLL to go back, but he never told me. And we never even really talked about it. I mean, we were never not friends. It's funny how people assumed we weren't friends, but he just wanted to do his own thing, which that's kind of what I wanted to do too. But he just kind of went and was like, "Oh, well, I'm moving to Mexico City," and me and Homicide were like, "Oh, okay. Well, Loki quit. You're a fly-in from Mexico City, which isn't going to happen often." Um, we were like, "Okay," so we got to like a midway point, and then Key left, and then Homicide went on to win the world title, you know, and I was basically the only other Rottweiler still there because Rocky got flown in for one show, and then that was it. And then he eventually came back years later, but that was when he left Mexico City. But for me, I did like almost a whole year of just kind of like not really doing much, you know. And
mhm.
this
Yeah.
is when I moved to the East Coast for Ring of Honor because I was living in California, and Gabe one day I said, "Hey, what about these double shots?" And he said, well, I can't afford another flight." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I remember I was talking to Punk one night, and he said, Gabe had mentioned something that you're not coming in, and I said, "Yeah." I said, "The flight's too much or whatever." And he says, "Well, look." This was when he was doing his tryouts for WWE, right? He goes, "I think I'm going to Raw. They keep telling me that." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "And I just re-signed a lease on my house. Come, move to Pennsylvania move in with me, and you'll be on the East Coast. So you'll be able to do more, and I'll hook you up with promoters." And I was like, "Well, fuck it. All right, let's do it." Like, so I packed my car and drove from California to Pennsylvania, and then moved in with Punk, and then he he thought he was going to be able to just live anywhere. So that's when they moved him to Louisville. And then he moved out after a few months, but he was kind of on the road with WWF or WWE just doing like darks for like a long time. But he was already under contract. And then, they didn't know what to do with him. So finally they were just like, "Oh, we'll just send him to OVW. Fuck it." So then he was all mad. And then I just stayed living in his house until I moved out. But uh, around that time, I was basically working for Ring of Honor, but I wasn't doing much. But I kept telling Gabe, I said, "Do you have any ideas?" He's like, "No." I said, well, what if I do something with like John Walters for the pure title or Nigel or, I said, I just want to be a wrestler. Like he had me in this Rottweiler group that were like street thugs, and that really wasn't me at that time. And I said, I want to wrestle. And he was like, I don't really see you in that line, whatever. And I was like, all right, dude, whatever the fuck. Like, so then promoters started offering me dates and paying me more money to do other shows. So I remember I did like my last match was, I think, a tag match with somebody, I can't remember. And I just wasn't into it. Like, now I was just doing Ring of Honor because I was booked there. And I
Right.
thought I kind of like, I thought I had to, right? And so I'm turning down promoters that are paying me double in the main events to do second match shit, losing to Jay Lethal on ROH shows. So I was like, all right, well, this was a sign, right? So I ended up just
Right.
I told Gabe, I said, if you don't have anything major for me to do, I said, I'm gonna take other bookings. And that was really all it came down to, because I mean Ring of Honor was running a couple weekends a month, maybe. So that was it when I first left. That's how it went down.
Right. And
Okay.
then from Ring of Honor, you start doing more independent dates.
Mhm.
Um, and then when does the Lucha Underground deal come in?
Oh, that's way late. That's way later. 'Cause I went to Puerto Rico for a year in 2009, working
Okay.
for Carlos Colon. Came back, kind of I had a wrestling school in Long Island, New York for a little bit. And then because that was the first place I called to come back when I was in Puerto Rico, was to the promoter in Long Island because I knew him. And then I had always kept in contact with Conan because in 2006 since 2006 he was trying to get me into AAA, but that's when they had like Jack Evans, Teddy Hart, Rocky was there, Kozlov, X-Pac, like they had like a big group of foreigners already there. But I was always in contact with Conan because I knew him from when I first started. And then kind of kind of a crazy story how Lucha Underground started was like it all happened in like 1 week. Like so my wife's birthday was on a Wednesday, I remember, 2014, and she told me she was pregnant then. And then on that day, and then Friday, that couple days later, Friday, we went to dinner just to like talk, and I left my phone at home because we were gonna have conversations about the baby. So I get home and Conan had been calling me like literally like ridiculous amount of times. So finally I called him back and he said, hey, we're all set. The deal's done. We're doing AAA USA. It's on TV in the States. And you're on a short list of the guys I told that I went on the show. And I said, oh man, that's awesome, whatever. And he's like, yeah, this is it, bro. This is what I've been telling you is going to go down. We're doing it. It's signed, sealed, deliver. So I said, all right, cool. Um, he said a guy will call you. This guy Mark will call you Monday from LA. I said, all right. So he did. 9:30 in the morning. I'm at the gym. Uh, pick it up, and he's like, hey, I'm Mark so and so from El Rey Network. Starts telling me about the project. Can you come in tomorrow morning to read some lines? And I said, well, I live in Pennsylvania. If you want to fly me in, sure. And he goes, oh, I thought you were local. And I was like, no. And he goes, all right, well, let me get back to you. And hello. And then
That was my wife.
and then I was
I
like,
haven't seen him
I
in a
was like,
while. Thought I'd say hi.
I was like, yeah. I said, you know, I heard I was supposed to be on the show. I didn't have to like read for it or nothing. And he's like, all right, yeah. Wednesday, this guy Tony emailed me the contract and said, if you're good with the compensation, here's the length of the terms. Um, what do you think? And I looked it over and I was like, I got a kid coming, so yep, this will work. So uh,
Right.
right before I signed the contract, I told him we were good, and then I got off the call, and I had done a tryout for NXT I think a year or two prior. So I called this guy Canyon Seaman. He
Yeah.
was so he was in charge of talent. So I called him because he was the one telling me, okay, when we do this cruiserweight thing, you're going to be a part of it. So the network had not started yet, but they were in the process of it, right? And then the first big show was going to be the Cruiserweight Classic. And he told me, I called him and I emailed him. I was like, can I call you? I have serious questions. I said, won't take long. So I did. And he said, listen, man, he goes, I don't know when this shit is going to start, but if you got money on the table and you got a kid on the way, he's like, you need to take that money. He goes, and as soon as you're done, call me. And I said, all right, thank you. That's all I needed to hear. So I signed the contract and sent it off. And then that was the start of it, really.
Yeah. So what was it like being in that arena of Lucha Underground and being able to have all these, crazy Lucha Libre matches? And if I'm not mistaken, it was a ladder match.
Yeah.
And was it in Helico? No, I
Yeah.
can't remember if it was Jack Evans or in Helico. I think it was in Helico when
No,
he
yeah.
ran and did that gigantic dive.
Yeah.
What was you thinking in that moment while he's in the air? Are you just like, I hope this doesn't hurt? Like, what does your mind go at that point?
People don't know I called that spot, both of them. That was my stupidity. And Jellicoe
Helico was just cool with it, right?
And he was just like, yeah, let me see if I could do it. And then so the whole thing, right, was so that was the title match. So
yeah,
the belts were originally created for us. Like that was the idea, was that we were going to be a heel stable with all the titles to end season 1. Well, what happened was one of the guys that we had on our team was terrible and they ended up firing him. So we didn't do the tournament. If people remember, they do the whole tournament and we weren't even allowed to be there. Like they didn't even fly. Like I was the only one flying in, but they told Cholo like not even to show up, like do not come to the building throughout the tournament. And then in the finals, we did the surprise arrival. Like Cueto came out and said, "Oh, but I forgot there's one more team," and then it was our dumbasses, right? So everybody was mad. So they had won the titles in the tournament, and then they did everything, and then that was the end of the match. That was going to be the finish. So I remember when we got to the building Sunday, I told Angelico, I said, hey, you want to do like a big dive on us and maybe like a double down, and then we'll go into a hot finish right off of that. And he goes, I bet I could jump off there. And I said, you think so? Because I didn't want to ask you, because it's your body. So
right.
That night or that afternoon, we put a crash pad in the middle of the ring, and that motherfucker ran and dead center every time. Boom, boom. He did like 3 or 4 of them. And he just does it like it was nothing. It was nothing. And I was like, holy shit. So I told Benny, I was like, me and you will catch him. We'll go shoulder to shoulder and just try to, basically we want to headbutt his belly button and then roll him over us, and he was like, all right, I got you. So we ended up doing that. And then that was the first one, right? And then they were so excited, whatever, afterwards. So then they gave us, I said, we got to get our heat back somehow, right? So DJ, who's the writer, he's like, no worries, I got you. So we won a match it was me and Cisco against Matt Cross and Helico, and we beat them with our finish. Boom. So we get the title match, which was the ladder match, right? So Helico goes, what are we going to do now that it's a ladder match? We got to do something bigger. And I said, well, so it's Saturday night and we're sitting in the building and it's empty and it's just me and him. And then in that side of the building, there was other people everywhere. But I said, how about this? I said, I'll start to climb the ladder and you missile drop kick me off of from the top of the office. He looked at me, you'll take that bump for me? And I said, I got you, bro. I got you. And he was like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. He goes, this shit is going to make me famous. And I said, yep, it is. And I was like, and I'm going to be the guy you're hitting like that. And he was like, thank you. He goes, all right, let's go over it. So we did. So we put the ladder on top. We put the crash pad, put the ladder on top of the crash pad. and he just jumped landing next to the crash pad every time. So he could do it.
Yeah.
And then I said, worst case scenario, I have to turn my body and feed my chest a little bit. I said, but I'll be there. And he goes, all right. So we go into the spot. The whole match was perfect. We're building up. I'm grabbing the ladder, and there's a part where I like pull my pants up type thing because I'm waiting to hear somebody say, yes, there. Like, because I didn't know where the ladder needed to be. So I kind of wait, and then I hear forward. And then so I kind of nudge it a little forward, and then I go around to climb it. And as I'm climbing it really slowly, I look, and it's just like a lightning bolt coming at me. And he just
Wow.
hit me. Boom. And I dislocated, my arm popped out.
Ouch.
If you see the whole clip, you'll see I land on my elbow, my arm pops out, and it's like up in the air, kind of stuck. And I tell the ref, Marty, I said, my arm is out. And he goes, you need a medic? And I said, yeah, my arm, it's out of the socket. I grab my own wrist and pull it to my belly button, and it pops back in. And I was like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. And he goes, get out of the ring. Get out of the ring. I said, no, I'm okay. He goes, get the fuck out of the ring. So the medics come and yank me out, or the trainer. They take me to the back where the paramedics are. And they're like, are you sure it came out? And I'm like moving, and I'm like, yeah, but I popped it back in. And they're like, yeah, okay, dickhead. Like, go ahead and hop in the van. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Well, we did something wrong, so we got all yelled at upstairs. And then as I'm getting yelled at, my fucking shoulder is like throbbing in so much pain. And they're like, are you okay? And I'm leaning down, and Vampiro's like, brother, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know, man. My arm came out. He goes, it looked weird when you landed. Are you all right? And I said, well, it came out, and I popped it back in. And they're like, get the fuck to the hospital now. So they're yelling at me again, and flew home in a sling.
Wow.
The crazy shit that we do to like finish a match.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just to outdo ourselves, right? Like,
yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'll let you do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. The dumb shit that we come up with.
Oh.
It's like, hey, you ever took a pile driver from the top rope? No. You want to? No. Will you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I guess.
Yeah. And then, or you see somebody do a move, and you're like, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. And then 2 weeks later, hey, I have the spot. No, you don't.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Famous last words.
You don't get to call any more spots. The last one, I died.
Right. Yeah. Trust fall? No.
And so Lucha Underground lasts what, 3-4 seasons? Is that right?
I think it's 4 seasons.
Yeah.
4 seasons. And you're there pretty much the whole 4 seasons.
I was the first wrestler to sign a contract with them. Yes.
Okay.
Awesome.
And then once when you get the news that they're not coming back for season 5, I'm sure you feel kind of deflated because you've got a kid now. You're married, where do you go next?
Well, we never really got like an official word, right? I mean, obviously it just ended, which was disappointing because at the end of season 4, there was the investor that had supposedly agreed to fund season 5 was there, and he loved it. So we thought we were all good for season 5 as far as we knew. And then, you kind of keep in contact with some of the important people, and eventually they just stop replying to things, So it kind of it was frustrating because we couldn't end it. Like, we didn't have a season finale, right? And it was a
Right.
TV series, so it actually needed to end, right? So it was disappointing, but I was so busy. I didn't really have time to really think about it or dwell on it, because I was traveling everywhere. I just kept, doing my thing. And then for me, when 2020 hit, that's when Ring of Honor had booked me for their pay-per-view, that past versus present pay-per-view in Las Vegas that never happened.
Yeah.
You know, so things were still looking up for me in the sense of like I was super busy, 3, 4 shows every week. I was, you know, doing seminars all over the country. So I owe a lot of that to to Lucha Underground because it kind of revived me again, you know, put me on another platform, got me back out there. And you know, I just kind of kept doing my thing and that was it, you know. I mean, I was just on the independents. I
Mm-hmm.
was again when I started, right? I just wanted to be a part of this whole thing, right? And not suck at it was my goal. And so yeah, I was just traveling around, you know, keeping busy, really. I mean, then the Ring of Honor stuff popped up and I thought that was a good sign. And then um COVID happened. After that, MLW called me and then I turned them down because they wanted to do like a spin-off of Lucha Underground.
Right.
And when they called me for that, their first attempt at it was in Philadelphia. So I was there and they were like, "Hey, can you do this show?" And I was at a point where I wasn't gonna I didn't want to do a lesser show of it. I said, okay, well, this was what Lucha Underground was paying me per event. You pay me this and I'll be there. And they're like, well, we can't afford that. And I said, that's fine. And that was it. I just ended that conversation.
Mm.
Um, you know, because they were still only running one show a month or something like that. And I was like, I told my wife, I'm not gonna go do a watered down version of it was like first off, I don't need to because I was making money anyways. And if you were gonna do that, you were gonna pay me what I was getting paid, so I could at least
Right.
financially, you know, feel better about it. But I knew I wasn't gonna work. I don't like Court Bauer. And then and then I
You're
ended
not the
up
first person I've heard say that.
Yeah.
yeah
You're one of many.
yeah. So after that, Rocky called me and he said, "Hey man, you know, I have an idea." And I said, okay. He's like, do you watch the show, the New Japan Strong show? And I said, yeah, of course. And he goes, because that's all that's all I've ever watched is New Japan.
Hmm.
So I said, I keep up with it. And he goes, well, I have this idea where I'm losing, and then I'm going to lose to somebody in my past. He goes, but I want this to work 2 ways for me. And I said, okay. And he goes, I want you to be the next Black Tiger. You'll be the number 8 installment. He goes, and then maybe down the line we'll do it where it's you. He goes, and then we'll go from there. And I said, you're gonna pay me a lot of money to come kick your ass? I said, yeah, I'll be there. So he was like, yeah. And then COVID happened, and then it got pushed back because Osprey was won the belt and then had to go back to the UK or wherever and then took the belt with them. And then there was more important shit going on, right? Like,
Right.
like they didn't need to worry about my dumbass. But
Right.
once they got that all figured out, and then they brought me in as Black Tiger in Philadelphia, um, attacking Rocky, and then I think everyone kind of knew it was me. Um, so kind of turned it took a life of its own where it was like, well, I didn't. Rocky called me one night after we did the angle, and then he goes, I want this to be different. He goes, I don't want it to be like the other Black Tigers. And I said, okay. I said, everyone kind of knows it's me. I said, why don't we make this the underground Black Tiger? And he was like, oh, I love that. And I said, this way could tie in to our history, my history. And he was like, oh, that's perfect. So that's when they started calling me the underground Black Tiger. And then we had that run, and uh, I don't know. I feel like I just at that point I had like one foot out the door, and I just thought I'm gonna go ahead and do this favor for him, and then because I owe him that, I owe him a lot, and I'm gonna wrap this up, and that was kind of it.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you're enjoying your life after wrestling now.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like we had talked about, when it started to affect my son, I just felt like I was letting him down, and then as a kid myself, I didn't have that support from my family like he has, right? Like
Right.
me, Like I'm following mom's lead on this one because she's comes from an amazing family where family gatherings are like seeing your best friends, and that's all new to me. Like, I wasn't beaten or anything as a kid, but I could honestly say I was verbally abused constantly. Um, it's almost to this day. I don't even talk to my parents anymore. Like,
Mm.
I talk to my grandfather and that's it. And he's 95 and, he's the only person I call out weekly. So, they've never even like my parents never even seen my son or my wife. Like, it's
Oh wow.
it's to that
Yeah.
point. He's 10, and we've been
Yeah.
married 11 years, and it's fine. I mean, it really is. It's because he's happy that she's happy, and that, like we were talking about, like when you see their little faces, you know what I mean? That's the biggest pop you can get, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
exactly.
there is
Yeah.
no greater feeling than knowing you stood there holding everyone's bags at the amusement park while they had the time of their life, and your back and ankle hurts and knee hurts and you're cramping up, and you just feel like, well, I did a good dad job today,
Yep.
uh, and then
Yep.
that's it. So, yeah, I mean, our focus now is him. My focus is him. Um, when I made the announcement that I was retiring, it was not easy to do. Um, it was March 17th, 2022. I had to let Stone Cold have his day. I didn't want to announce it on
Right.
3/16, because
Right.
Right.
I I didn't want to have heat, brother. Um, so I waited until 4 a.m. or something that morning, and I sent out all the social media bullshit, and I went to sleep, and then the entire world had thanked me by the time I woke up. So I felt like I did my job, and it was just time. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not the easiest thing to do, right? But
No.
it's the necessary thing, and there is no real right time. My wife's career was taking off. She, was doing what she wanted to do. We moved here to Texas for her to do that. Like that was one of our reasons we moved here. And he's excelling at everything this kid does. He's going to be some sort of like George St. Pierre freak one day. Um, and as long as he likes doing what he's doing, like we're not those parents, like you got to do this. But um, yeah, man, like I get to be their number one fan now, right?
Yeah.
Like they
Right.
were for me. And
Does
you
he
guys know how
also
it is.
what? I'm sorry. Does he also enjoy watching professional wrestling as well?
So this year he's been taking a liking to it all of a sudden. Um, I guess because of the shorts and stuff that he sees. He tells me, "Hey, did you know Rey Mysterio fought Brock Lesnar?" And I'm like, "Oh wow, did he?" And I let him tell me all about it. Um, little does he know he has a mask from Rey from when Rey was in Lucha Underground. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's like all that stuff. He just knows that Daddy was a wrestler. Like, he was too young. To
Right.
really understand it. And I never
Uh,
brought it
Yeah.
home either. Like I never did for the problems, and my wife, and like even she finds it every now and again. Somebody will say something or post something about me, and she's like, "Oh my God." And I laugh at her and I'm like, I think you're the only one that doesn't know your husband was somebody at one point in his life, because I never talked about it. I would go away and then come back and ask her how was your day, type thing, instead of bullshit that we deal with, right? Because like
right.
when we all start to realize like it ain't even worth bringing up, right? I mean,
Right.
all you
No.
do is piss yourself off, and then you bring it home, and then now they're mad that you're mad, so now they don't want you to do it. Now it's another argument. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's what the cycle is. So I just thought, you know what? I just leave it at the door. How was your trip? It was good. I'm not hurt. I'm not injured. Boom. How was your day? And that's
Yeah.
it. And that's really all that matters. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In the end, that's what
yeah.
matters. You're right. Um. So I have to know. Being born in Texas, how are you enjoying the state of Texas?
No. Oh, you were from Texas.
I am. Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, I love, well, another story was when I debuted, I first came to Texas, I came to Dallas, and there was three, when I was a kid, there was three things that I was fascinated by in wrestling. One was Japan, two was Puerto Rico, and three was Texas for some reason. Like I would search the whole magazine for one of those topics and start reading all about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember because Dallas was on ESPN at one time, and I would
Hmm.
watch Dallas wrestling, and I thought, wow, different wrestling. Like, I was just used to WWF, and I'm like, these guys look real. Like, you know, like watching Kevin drop kick and bare feet, to Terry Gordy's face, and I'm like, holy shit, like, toes to nose, like, what the fuck?
Yep.
And it was just a different, more rugged, what I enjoyed of style of wrestling. So when I first came here in Dallas, I was like, man, I really like the weather because it reminded me of Southern California. And then I met Rudy Gonzalez, who ran a school in San Antonio. Well, he was doing the ring rental that day. So we kicked it off like we're two old school guys, right? Like he's
Right.
talking about guys that I know and read about, Tully and Joe Blanchard, and and um and I'm like fascinated by it, and we're still best friends to this day. And so he goes, hey, he goes, I got these dates coming up, and I said, yes, I'm in. And he was like, well, we didn't talk money, and I said, text me whatever you can do, I'll be here. So the next month he booked me in San Antonio. Well, when I flew into San Antonio, we're like driving to Del Rio, and that's a couple hours away,
Hmm.
and I just fell in love with San Antonio, and I went back and I kind of like pitched it to my wife. I said, "Hey, what if we moved?" And she was like, "Yeah, let's move." Like. And I said, "Look, I love you to death, but I can't take this cold weather bullshit no more." So I said, "We're going." I said, "What about San Antonio?" She's like, "Oh yeah, that sounds great." So she starts researching, and she was all on board. And it took a couple years for us to get ready, but we ended up moving here, and I love it. Like I love it so much. Like that's another reason why I could step away, was because living on the East Coast, I hated it. I hated everything. I hated the people, I hated the food, I hated the weather. But as long as I was busy, I was okay. I was gonna tough it out,
Right.
And I got busy here. My first year was my last year in wrestling, and I was doing Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday shows
Oh,
almost
wow.
every other week. Yeah, every other week.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm talking like I'm down in McAllen, which is 4 hours south of us. I'm up in Dallas, I'm up in Waco, I'm over in Austin, and then I'm hitting Houston, Corpus, every Laredo, every major city. I was just all over the place. So, and then when I decided I could step away, like I was like, yeah, man, like I'm doing real good. Like, like outside of the ring was my only concern. Like, could I step away? Did I have something I wanted to focus on? And I do. So it's good.
That's
It's always
awesome.
good to find that. It's always good to find that. I won't really say placeholder because that sounds like a disrespectful term, but it's always good to have that one thing that you hold on to after your career is over with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's good. And I'm happy that you're happy, bro. I really am. I'm happy that you've found peace outside of wrestling.
And that's a struggle for a lot of guys,
It
like
is.
Yeah.
it's really almost a double-edged sword, I think, because when you do find it, you can't really let go of wrestling, right? So now we're fighting against what we were hoping to get, and then now we got it. Now we don't know how to act.
Yeah.
And that really is it, man. Like, and like I said, it's like ripping a scab off. Like you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know when the perfect time was, but everything lined up, and you had to go through it by yourself. Like I had to be alone and cry it out and everything, and just say, I got to do this because I have to I have to do this for a bigger reason, and that reason is not me. I don't know if you guys watch a lot of uh Lucha Underground, but do you remember Big Rick? Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ezekiel. Okay, so he's an amazing dad, right? I mean, just the best. So he'd bring his kids all the time to the shows and catering, and and we used to get in the ring with them, and he's just like the best dad, right? And I'll never forget. I went up to him and I said, my son's gonna be born in like next month, and he was like, "Yeah, man, congratulations, I'm happy for you." I said, "You got any advice for me?" And he goes, "Advice?" And I said, "Yeah, man." I said, "I see you with your kids, man. I mean, I've never seen love like that, like in those kids' eyes. And he goes, "It's not about you anymore, bro." And I just was like, "Okay." And that was the most real advice anyone ever gave me was, "It ain't about you anymore, bro." you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's something like when you have a kid, there's something that flips, and you kind of realize like for you it was him telling you. For other people it's like I want them to be better than I
Right,
was.
right.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was a big thing for me. Like when I had kids, like I wanted them to have a better childhood than I had.
Yeah.
Like my mom was great, but my father, like, dude, I'm telling you, if he was on fire sitting right next to me, I'd walk 3 states away to take a piss.
Hmm.
I mean,
Right,
that's who he is.
right.
Um, so yeah, it's just, I mean, I want them to have better than I had.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely.
last couple of questions, just some quick fire.
Mhm.
Um, top five favorite matches
I was in, or
that you were in.
oh man.
I
Putting them
know
on
it's
the
hard.
spot, Chip.
Yes, I know it's hard.
Um, well, I had one with Alex Shelley in Pittsburgh. It was the first time we had worked a singles match. We had did some tag stuff, but I was super excited, and I think that got him super excited because he was already doing really well in TNA. He didn't have to come in and work as hard as he did for me. So that one sticks out. There was one in Boston. It was me and Joe, uh, and it was for the Ring of Honor title. Oh man, that was fun because we didn't call much. I remember he wanted something for the finish, and then the rest of the time I was like, whatever, because we had trained so much together and we were such good friends. So that was fun. I would say me and Rocky against the Briscoes and PWG, the last time we worked them, the Briscoes flights got delayed, and for some reason the dipshits in charge wouldn't move our match up the card. Yeah, so like they're like on their way to the building as we're the next match. So they come in and they already had their boots on, luckily, and everything. And I remember they were like, "Well, what do we need for the finish?" And they were like, "Something, whatever." I think it was like Jay Driller on me. And I was like, "Okay, that's cool." I said, "We'll just figure out everything else, right?" And we just tore the fucking house down. Um, there was a match I did against TJP in Toronto when he had the Puma gimmick, the
Okay.
mask gimmick that he had. Um, that was my debut in Toronto, and the crowd was just going insane for us. I think Liger and Ultimo Dragon were on the main event of that show. It was a big show. And then I had a bunch in New York with all the guys I trained with. Um, yeah, and then I mean Lucha Underground, we had like a huge 6-man against the AAA guys. Season 1, I think it was episode 12, and I remember Dorian and Conan. Dorian's the president of AAA. His whole family was there. His mom, the whole Pena family, and they were going up to their seats to watch us do that match. And I told Dorian, I was like, "Hey, bro, we're next. We're next." And I said against the AAA guys, and he turns around and he walks over to me and he goes, "That's why my family's here, to see this match." And he goes, "Good luck."
Man.
And then turns around and walks up to the suite. And I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, I turned
Pressure's on
to,
now.
yeah, I
No,
turned to
no
Cholo and
pressure.
No
I was like,
pressure. Don't
man,
fuck up. It's all good.
I was like, yeah, I was like, they're here to watch us, and he said that was the match that they all wanted to see. So, that was with Aerostar, Superfly, and Arhannis, and I put that whole match together, which was a headache, but I did it.
Right. Okay.
Awesome.
So let me ask you this question. What advice would you give to a young up and coming wrestler wanting to get involved with the business?
Oof. Um, I kind of give everybody the same advice, like during seminars and in training and stuff, and after matches. Um, what I did that worked for me was I never settled like, oh, I did really good. I always pointed out what I didn't do well. Um, and we only have control over ourselves, right? Like, this business is someone else is writing it, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so the things that we can control is what I worked on. If I don't look at messing up a spot as something I need to work on. I look more at, what was my posture like? Did I come off believable? Was I there for this opponent when he needed me to be? Um, I always tell guys there's three things you should constantly work towards and work for and work on. First is the business in general, period. The business is number one. We are nothing without it, right? Um, my main goal every day was to represent the business, um, meaning being professional, being in shape, looking the part, being approachable, imagining like a CEO coming to see your store. What's he going to be like? You just hope he's nice. That's what I always looked at the business as, like we were representing the business, right? And then uh second is the match. Do what's best for the match, not for myself. uh Promoters all the time, hey, can you be a heel, can you be a face? I can be whatever you need me to be tonight. Can you go an hour? I can go 90 minutes. What do you need from me tonight? That all ties into being professional. The business of the match. What is needed? What do you need me to do? What can you do? What do you need me to do? I answer that way. What do you prefer, heel or face? What do you need? You know, uh, what's someone uncomfortable doing? I'll do the other. Or I'll do that. You know, and then ultimately third, which is the least important but still important, do what's best for you as well, because we are our own entity, right? Our name. We have to do business right because that's our reputation. When people say Ricky Reyes or look up Ricky Reyes or something, I I hope people all have the same idea. Is like, I've heard of him. I heard he's a good wrestler. That's it. I'm content with knowing that. And when I left wrestling, everyone gave me that love back. So I know I did my job right. So I always do that. Professional. The business is one, the match is two, and then I'm three on that list. So I always tell guys, like, you should be durable in a sense of, like, you can do, if you have three shows in a weekend, you should do babyface tag team match, heel singles, and a comedy six man, and be able to do that without blinking an eye. Not, I don't want to do that. That's not my gimmick, or, blah, 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 because it's all pro wrestling. It's all on the same, it's all on the same show. You know, it's all equally important, right? Each match, because
Right.
guess what? That's what the promoter is paying you to show up to do. It's like, okay, we got a comedy gimmick, Ricky. We're gonna slide you into it. Okay, cool. Oh, you're okay with that? I remember first time I wrestled Delirious. he was like, well, I kind of do this stuff and blah. He goes, I know that you're probably not going to like it. I said, no, do it. That's what's over. I mean, I'm going to shut it down and whoop that ass, but then you're going to do it at the end and they're going to be all happy. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I said, are you fucking kidding? Like, if your shit's over, bro, that's what I want you to do. Because that's what I need to take away from the match. And then we're going to give it to him at the end.
I,
And he was like, oh, all right, thanks, bro. You know, he acted like I was doing him a favor. I'm like, bro, you're a fucking made gimmick, brother. I'm just sliding in, putting some heat, taking a comeback, see you at the bar. Like, that's it. Like,
Right.
yep.
um,
So I
But
remember,
Delirious is fun to work. Yes, he
yeah,
is.
I
yeah,
remember working Delirious in a 6-man. It was,
No.
uh,
It was an 8-man.
oh, was it
It
an eight
was
man?
yeah.
I remember.
It was you, me, Drew, Duckworth, and Matt Gilbert, and it was against Punishment Martinez, aka Damian Priest,
yeah.
Glacier, uh, Delirious, and I cannot remember for the life of me who else was there.
It was
QT
QT
Marshall. There
Marshall.
we go. There we go.
Yeah,
That's
Oh,
right.
PT.
yeah. But Delirious is literally the same thing. He was like, I do all this comedy stuff, and I was like,
Yeah,
Delirious, I know who you are. Like, we're
right.
getting all your stuff in, and he was like for real? And I was like, yeah, we're getting all your stuff in. Like, I'm gonna do my best to shut it down, but the people are here to see Delirious do his stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all getting in.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And he was like when we told him one of the cutoffs that we were doing was we were going to hit because me and Chip used to do this tag team move where Chip would hit you with a backbreaker and then I would come from behind and I would do a flip and catch the guy who's on Chip's knee with a cutter and flip him over into a cutter. And we were explaining the move to him and Delirious is like, I've never seen that before. That's awesome. Yes, do that. Hell yeah. And he's all excited. I'm like, we do this move all the time. It's not that impressive. And then after the match, he was like, did I take that move all right? Was it good for you? I'm like, dude, you took it perfect.
Yeah.
Because
He's a
whenever
pro.
we do that
Yeah.
move, I'm more worried that I'm going to land on my head as opposed to hurting the guy that we're doing the move
Right.
to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but yeah, Delirious is great, dude. It was fun to work with him. It was really cool. Yeah.
yeah. So top 5 favorite arenas to wrestle in
Ugh.
that you have wrestled in. And you've
Um,
been all over the world, so
Yes.
yeah. Well, Korakuen Hall is electric if you have a good match, like because they let you know. Um, there was the Coliseum, the Bayamon arena that we used to shoot TV in Puerto Rico. Um, that one is amazing because there's like back in the 90s when Puerto Rican wrestling was hot, the crowd would chant on the babyface's comeback. So they would all go fwa fwa like as you punched. So the old Puerto Rican guys were telling me like if the baby face is firing up on you, it's gonna come slow because if the crowd is fwa, then you got to let them do it. He goes, you otherwise you're stepping on your own dick. And I said, okay, got it. So that I mean your punches from your comeback were like you were drunk selling for a minute, but it's because the crowd is so hot. It's crazy. I liked Arena Mexico, um, just because of the history of it, like 90 something years there. Um, just being in that building gives me chills. And I was there every Friday and Tuesday for like 6 months, so it was amazing. Um, Lucha Underground, the arena that we built, I mean, it was nothing when we started, right? Like we didn't even know what the show, we didn't know the name of the show until we got there and we saw the posters everywhere because they didn't put it on any emails or anything. So that building was, if you've ever seen clips of it, it's it's 10 times better when you're in it,
oh
obviously
wow.
than on TV. It's insane. Like there was a couple of times I went down just to feel the crowd. Like when Del Rio debuted, I went down
Mhm.
and then same thing with Ray. Ray was already there. We knew Ray was there. And then he was the entry into like the Rumble thing that we used to do. He was like number
Mhm.
two. It was him and Ray Phoenix started. Uh So it was like Ray Phoenix got announced, and then Melissa just stood there like in silence for like it had to be at least 5 minutes, and the crowd is like standing up, and now it's getting like awkward, and then they knew something was happening, and then when she said from the 619, the fucking place could have broke down. It erupted so much. It was insane.
Awesome.
Wow.
Um, that's when that was like season 2, and that's when I was like, yeah, this show ain't going nowhere, bro. Like we are good.
Right. Right.
um, and then just different hot venues. Like, when you have a good match, you can make any venue pop, right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of the goal, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, when I was firing on all cylinders, man, like I could make any. I used to love when guys are like, "Oh, the crowd's dead," and I'm like, "No, you just suck." Like I'm gonna show you in a minute. Like here's how you do it. You know what I mean? You got to involve the crowd, and that's what they want. If they were quiet, it's because you weren't paying attention to them. Um,
Right.
so
I would say that probably one of my biggest pet peeves as a wrestler was people going out and not working the crowd.
right,
Like they're
exactly,
there, they want to be involved,
right.
and for you to just like pretty much like go through the motions and sit on your dick,
Do
then
your shit. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
they just got to get their shit in. They're
That's
not,
it.
it, in my opinion, they're not actually wrestlers. They're just stage
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember one time. Hell, I'll pick this name up real quick. We did a show with Al Snow on the card, and there were these four guys. I cannot remember for the life of me who they were, but these four guys went out there and they just had a match, and it was a good. And I mean, physically and athletically, it was a great match. They got back to the locker room. The four of them asked Al, "Hey, did you watch the match?" He goes, "Yeah, I watched the match." And he was like, "What'd you think of it?" He goes, "You guys aren't workers. You're just wrestlers."
Right.
And they were like, "What?" And it's like no one worked the crowd. Everyone just went out there and wrestled a match. You guys might as well have been working a studio show because you guys didn't
Yep.
involve the crowd. So you guys are great wrestlers, unbelievable wrestlers, but you can't work. And he walked away. And those four guys just standing there just distraught. Like,
Hmm.
and I'm over there like, thank God I wasn't in that match,
Yeah.
because yeah, I mean, athletically, here's the thing. It's more, and I tell people this sometimes too. It's more than just what you can do in the ring because wrestling, yes, what we do is athletic, what we do is dangerous, what we do is a lot of different things. But it's the same way in wrestling, the same way it is in film and television. You have to suspend disbelief and allow the audience to be immersed into the world that you are creating in front of them. If you cannot get the crowd emotionally invested into a match, no one is going to buy it. No one is going to watch it. And in essence, you're going out there basically wrestling in front of nobody because everybody's either sitting on their hands or they're on their phones.
Yep.
You know,
That's it.
and most people they just think, oh, I'm gonna get my shit in. Okay, cool, you can get your shit in, but it's not going to bring in 10, 15 more people to watch you, you
Yeah.
know, because you're not giving them a reason to watch, you
Right.
know. But but yeah.
Yeah. So typically this would be the part of the show where I would tell you to plug your shit, but as a retired wrestler, what do you have coming up?
Yeah. My son's black belt test, and that's about it. No, yeah. No, I mean, I have social media like Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, Twitter, but yeah, I don't have events. I've had a couple people reach out to like come to the schools and stuff nearby and either help out or come to the shows and help out. But again, like not it's just not the right time for me right now. Maybe someday, but
Right.
you know,
Right.
but
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about like doing conventions, like pop culture conventions?
I used to do a few of them. I didn't, I mean, at the time I didn't like it because I was usually a heel or my character is more heel-ish. So I didn't like going to those. Like I never
Hmm.
did meet and greets before the shows unless I was a face. That used to get me in arguments with promoters, but I'm not going to be out there high-fiving kids at 4:30, and then you're supposed to hate me at 9 p.m., you know.
Right.
So I never really did a lot. I see Tully Blanchard at my gym every morning. Um, he's always like, well, you know, I do a podcast and then I do conventions, and that's pretty much it. And I thought, I don't think I'm that guy that people are like, damn, what's Ricky Reyes doing? You know, like, um, I do have like a bunch of Lucha Underground like pictures and stuff. I thought maybe I might do one, just slide in and sell some pictures or whatever, just for fun and meet fans. But yeah, right now it's just not on the my priority list. Like, if one were to come up, maybe I would do one. Uh, but no, I'm not. I have to like I had to cut this off cold turkey, right, in order to do it, because
Yeah.
I couldn't leave, you know, my toes dipped in it, you know, still, because I wouldn't be able to have a clean break. But now I'm like
Yeah.
over it. Like, I know I'm not gonna come back, even though I kind of teased one at one time, but that was more of a mental thing for me to get in better shape. Like, I just wanted to get back in shape in the gym and
Right.
move around and feel better. But yeah, I don't really have stuff, and you know, I love that guys like you, workers that can go out and speak for wrestling the correct way, do go out and put out content with that knowledge, because everybody now can like talk about wrestling like fans, and
Yeah.
and then wrestlers that are knowledgeable get lost in that shuffle, and that bothers me in a big way, because I always think like I'll listen to a clip or something and I'll be like, this person thinks Charlotte Flair is really Charlotte Flair. Like, you know, like, what the fuck? Like, you know, and
Right.
then when you hear like a conversation or a breakdown of something, how well it went, or how, you know, how it could have been better. I never try to shit on pro wrestling. Uh, even to this day, I'll never put it down. I'll always suggest maybe to do it better this way, you know, or here's a way that I know uh, that it could be a little bit better, you know, because everyone's going to put their own flavor in the pot. So, and that's fine, you know, and fans have every right to, you know, like and not like whatever they want. Um, but for argument's sake, you still got to hit the right. There's a formula to this, you know, and some people know how to do it, WWE, and some people don't, AEW, you know. And the proof is the consistency, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're gonna go just off, okay, they get over 5,000 every pay-per-view, cool. That's every 4 months. And that builds for that night, and that's it. And then consistently the next week, they're working in front of 1,500 people for the rest of these 2 or 3 months.
Right.
So, and I'm glad the guys are getting paid. Don't get me wrong. Nothing makes me happier than knowing that these guys are have an opportunity to better their lives. Um, but for the love of God, can someone stand up and say, "Hey, this sucks. Let's do this right," you know, and build a stronger foundation for the company, you know?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
mean, again, that's just my opinion. But when you stop and look at the numbers, uh, it's there in black and white that it's not good, and
Yeah.
they kind of
Num
hit their limit with who's gonna enjoy it and who's gonna watch it, and that's great. And it's not gonna get above that. It's just going the other direction, and it's sad.
Yeah. It
Yep.
really is.
It is.
Numbers do not
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. So I mean, I'm glad everyone's getting paid, and hope they're saving it and whatever. But as far as pushing WWE, WWE's pushing themselves right now. It
Yeah.
was it was a lot more interesting when Monday Night Wars were happening, and it was a legitimate nervous energy makes that shit fly a little higher. So it would
Yeah.
be nice if AEW pull their head out of their ass and get it together,
Mm.
because I would love to see the old magazines that had Harley Race and Hulk Hogan on them and who's the real world champion. Man, that was when I was like,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
you know, that was legit arguments with people, you know. And it was, you know, those numbers were much better for, I mean, you know, obviously it's broken up now, but what I'm saying is the argument was more legit then than it is now.
I agree,
Right.
100%.
When we talk about the Monday Night War with WWF and WCW back in the day, it was called the Monday Night War specifically because I've heard other people on the internet, and take that for whatever you want, but they were like, oh, the Wednesday Night War, because this was when NXT and AEW were on the same night. And NXT decided we're going to move to Tuesdays. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, AEW beat NXT, the Wednesday Night War, the Wednesday Night War. And I'm like, wait a minute, is NXT still in business? Do they still do NXT shows? Yeah. Then there was no war, because in a war, one company loses. When the Monday Night Wars took place, WCW died. Okay. Now, yes, a lot of things took place, like the AOL Time Warner merger and all that kind of stuff. But nevertheless, if WCW had a product that was really, really good, then AOL Time Warner would have kept it.
Somebody would have, somebody would have took it, or they would have moved somewhere else. Right.
Exactly. And
I mean,
pretty much died.
They're just trying to relive stuff that we all experienced, like they want that, but they have no idea what it was like,
Right.
I mean, not just from a fan's perspective, but like I was just starting wrestling then, and hearing guys talk about how it was, they really didn't like each other, and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's just it is different, but like I said, I just wish they would do better for wrestling.
I agree, 100%.
For wrestling. So, Ricky, we were once told that the greatest gift you can give another person is your time, because it is the one thing that you cannot get back. So we greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us this evening.
Yes, thank you for having me on, guys.
We definitely appreciate it. If you want to hang out with us for just one more minute while we get this outro going, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. It's been a while since we've done an interview, but thank you guys for being patient with us. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Chip, anything you want to say before we bounce out of here this evening?
As always, please do not leave without leaving a like, comment, share, and subscribe.
And if you guys want to continue to support Movement Radio, check out streamlabs.com/Movement Radio/merch and go copy some merch. Ricky, once again, can't thank you enough for being here, buddy. We appreciate you for being here tonight. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. I'm Talon Williams.
I'm Chip Hazard. He's Ricky Reyes. And this is Movement Radio.
God's plan.